Next for you now, Burkina Faso has confirmed that it has asked France to pull its troops out within a month. France deploys about 400 special forces in the junta-ruled country, but relations have deteriorated and tensions have soared in recent months. Paris is now asking for clarification from coup leader Ibrahim Traore himself. The French government wants that confirmation, as the Burkina government has been divided over whether or not to keep the French troops in the country. Well, for more on this move out of Burkina Faso, let's bring in Africa expert Douglas Yates, who's with me on this set. Hi, Doug. Always great to have you on the show. First of all, what are the reasons behind this request from Burkina Faso that the French troops leave?
Well, first we've got an infrequentable ruler. Colonel Traore came to power by coup d'etat, where he toppled another military junta ruler who had come to power by coup d'etat. Paris has been very uncomfortable with regime, and it's made clear in no uncertain terms it wants a restoration of democracy. First problem, Colonel Traore has no intention of holding elections in the country. He doesn't even control the territory. The second is the availability of Wagner, the Russian mercenaries. They seem to offer a no-strings-attached military aid without human rights, which is exactly what he wants, to go up and fight Al-Qaeda and Islamic State in the north of the country. And the third has been a very successful Russian propaganda run through social media to spread a kind of virulent anti-French sentiment. And so he's also trying to play to the street, playing tough against France because he lacks domestic legitimacy.
You mentioned this playing to the street, and it's interesting. There were protests in Burkina Faso on Friday where we saw video where some of the protesters were holding Russian flags, signs with pro-Russian slogans. This cooperation with Russia does seem to be on the political agenda there. How do you expect that relationship might develop in the future?
Well, I think it will remain at exactly the level that it's at. Colonel Traore is not representing all of Burkina Faso. Over half of his population is living under the yoke of Islamic terrorists. He can't defend them. He doesn't govern the territory. So it's a state-to-state relationship that he's playing, largely with mercenaries, to get arms and to have tactical support and a bit of air power. Will this turn into Burkinabés speaking Russian? No. French is, in fact, the primary language of all Burkinabés. Will Russia begin some kind of development program? This is one of the poorest countries of the world. Russia has no development projects anywhere in Africa. So it will remain a military strongman with support of a largely criminal organization, Wagner, which some of Wagner's crack troops are there, but Wagner is now emptying Russian prisons to send them into Ukraine. They're both infrequentable, and frankly, they deserve each other. But it's terrible news for the Burkinabé.
Let's get back to the country at the moment with these 400 French troops who are there. What's their role at the moment?
Okay, so France was asked to leave Mali. France had invested heavily in the war on terror in the north of Mali. And so Burkina Faso served in the G5 Sahel group as an important base for operations, largely in Mali. So there had been an airstrip on the border of Mali. The terrorists had crossed over and attacked it. There have been an incursion of Islamic State terrorists into the tip of Burkina Faso, which is kind of like a triangle. And the 400 special forces have been running missions against them. But also they were used in Benin, to the south, to help liberate some hostages. And so they have helicopters, they fly around, they do punctual missions. They'll be able to do this just as well outside of Burkina Faso.
So what consequences then do you think this demand will really have on the relationship between Burkina Faso and France? We've talked so much in the past about this France-Afrique, of France's influence in the region, but now, particularly in the context of the end of the Barkhane operation last year, how might things develop?
Well, I think France will return to being a peaceful partner of the Burkinabé people rather than a military partner of strongmen in Burkina Faso. France had basically supported for almost 3 decades the former strongman Blaise Compaoré. And after he was ousted in 2014, there were a series of military rulers and then finally a Democrat, Marc Christian Roch, who came to power. France thought, oh, good, we've got a partner for development. He was overthrown. It seemed as though France was just there playing cops and robbers with a bunch of terrorists. I think what's good about this is France will have a chance to reposition its troops and think, what kind of relationship does it want to have with Ouagadougou?
And just to wrap up, more globally for Burkina Faso and for the region, what consequences might this have on the power of terrorist groups in the region?
Oh, I mean, right now, I hear that they control 40%, but if you look at a map of the country, they're present everywhere but in the center of the country. This can only benefit. The one thing that plays into the Hutus' hand is that the two main formations of terrorists, Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, are fighting each other for control. But the only party that's not present is the government. Terrorists will have their day.
All right, Douglas, thanks so much for coming to speak to us. Douglas Yates, Africa expert on France 24. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.